Talktainmentradio.com.
We give you a reason to come.
The world's greatest radio.
We give you a reason to stay.
Radio the way it should be heard.
You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guests and not necessarily those of Talktainmentradio.com, 3MR Production, its ownership, management, or staff.
We've got the power.
This is The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
This is The Compensatory Concept, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com. Radio the way it should be heard, the world's greatest radio. I'm here with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. He's the author of two well-known works. Give him a chance to get inside of them and tell you exactly what's involved with them. But the Compensatory Concept is heard live every Wednesday, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you can hear a repeat of what we do at 10 a.m. at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com. Let's bring in Mr. Neely Fuller. Mr. Fuller, how are you, sir?
I'm still learning.
Mr. Fuller, a lot of things have happened this past week. A lot of new initiatives, a lot of things are going on. We talked about the March on, it's interesting language, March on Washington. And just that language itself is quite interesting, but that's coming up real soon. But Mr. Fuller, we're going to turn to you this particular program, and there's some things that I'm pretty sure you have been observing this week that you may want to initiate, and then we'll come back and then I'll throw out some things. Mr. Fuller, let's go to you. First of all, before we go to Mr. Fuller, you can get his works at www.producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. And I've had people calling me about how to get your works, and I tell them go to the website, www.producejustice.com, and then follow the prompts from there. So, Mr. Fuller, what is it that you've been observing, and what is it that you want to point out this morning on your show? Go ahead, sir.
Well, there's a lot of things that I've been observing, but a few people have been calling me, or they have been sending me email, and one person has asked a question about sports and entertainment. That's the third area of activity. There are 9 areas of activity that are listed in the book of the compensatory code concept. That's economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And I always tell people that all of these areas of activity are interactive, meaning what happens in education will affect what happens in religion. What happens in religion will affect what happens in politics. What happens in politics will affect what happens in education and in economics and in sex and on and on and on. All things that people do each and every day are interactive. The labels will say, well, for example, a person will say, well, are you in the field of education? Well, actually, if you think about it, education is just a process of learning. So everybody's in the field of education. See, that's the way that I choose to go with it. The labels that we put on categories of people activity are just labels, because people are in all areas of activity 24/7. They're operating in all these areas, particularly if you include the area number 9, which is war. People are at war all the time, at least in this particular time in history, because war, by definition right now, according to counter-racist logic, is this war that we have dealing with racism. The race war is the only real war on the planet. Everything else is a battle. But I explain all that in the textbook for victims of racism, which people can get if they punch into the computer, producejustice.com. But let's get to this field of entertainment. Area 3, entertainment. Now, people have asked me, what should black people be doing in sports and entertainment? And so the first thing you do, you want to identify what is a sport. Well, most dictionaries carry it that, well, it's a form of frivolity or relaxation or something that you enjoy doing and whatnot. That's kind of broad, too. And entertainment, sports and entertainment kind of go together. But I say that in every area of activity, for people who are subject to an oppressive system, subject to non-justice, like the system of white supremacy is a system of non-justice, you should always be in a education mode. That's why I always say that I'm still learning, because education is the way out of oppression. Education is the way out of having problems. Any problem that's going to be solved is going to be solved by you learning something, learning how to solve the problem. It's very simple. So the biggest problem on the planet now between people, the biggest political and religious problem, is the problem of racism. So you study racism, what it is and how it works, and you come up with counteraction against racism so that you can replace it with a better system. Presumably that better system would be the system of justice, which I've given a compensatory definition for the word justice, and that is guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. So I coined the word, since the person emailed me, asked me should black people be doing in the field of entertainment. I mean, because black people seem to be so much involved in sports and entertainment and not involved in very much of anything else, because the white supremacists mostly channel us in that direction. They took their victims and said, well, we don't want you to be too much getting into anything that has to do with what we call classical economics. We handle that. We handle the money. We handle the resources. We handle the use of time and energy. We dictate to people how they will use their time and energy, which is basic economics. How you dark-skinned people out there, we will determine how you will use your time and energy. If we want some diamonds mined in the Congo, we will determine how you will use your time and energy mining those diamonds, and what I will pay you for doing so, and what the conditions will be under which you will do so. They will be at the point of an AK-47, a rifle. And then I will determine what you are worth and what the diamonds are worth on the world market. You don't determine any of that. And that comes under economics. But now, when it comes to drinking beer in the Congo, and or having what you call a quote unquote good time, I'll allow you a lot of leeway in doing that. When it comes to just getting drunk and fighting among yourselves or something like that, I give you plenty of resources for doing that, and I'll make it available to you. I'll make sure that you have plenty of drinks, intoxicating drinks and whatnot, that when you get through mining my diamonds, you can go over there to the beer halls and you can get drunk and you can fight each other up to the point that I come and get you and hit you over the head and send you back out there to mine some more diamonds. Now, this is the way I handle you people, so I'll let you entertain yourselves on a vast scale, but I'll even control that at a distance. But I'll give you a lot of leeway, and I will give many of your entertainers top money for entertaining. And you can do all the entertainment you want to. Now, this being the case, what do the victims actually do? Because this is the question that was put to me by the person that emailed me. What can we do when They just allow us just to do all this entertainment, but they don't allow us to do much of anything else. Well, you use the entertainment to be edutainment. That's a word that I coined just this morning. You can say, well, what would that mean? Well, you can say you use your entertainment to educate yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And since that's what they allow you, you can only use what they allow you. So you, in every way that you possibly can, with the little space that they allow you to operate in, try to use your entertainment to educate yourself about other things, because entertainment is one of the areas of activity, just like all areas of activity are interactive. Mm-hmm. Entertainment does go into the economic field, and it spills into the religious field. You can do a lot of things in entertainment. You can send messages through entertainment. Recently, I've been looking at the movie Casablanca, and I've seen it maybe about 20 times, maybe more. And that is one of my favorite movies, if not the favorite movie. And there's a character in there named Sam, who is under the system of white supremacy, obviously, very docile, very obedient, very loyal to what you might say is his master, played by the character Humphrey Bogart, and he depicts a character in Morocco, Rick Blaine, who owns a restaurant, but that's not the thing that I point to in the movie as the biggest lesson. That lesson almost goes without saying. There are many other lessons in that movie, and I kind of like that movie, and I say it's my favorite movie because the United Independent concept is expressed in that character, a white man, Rick Blaine, in the movie Casablanca. That's the essence of the United Independent concept. A person who is acting each and every day, a very flawed person like we all are, but he's acting and doing the best that he can under conditions that are very, very trying almost every other minute. He's trying to run a restaurant where he has to deal with all kinds of people who are pouring into Casablanca, which is in Morocco, from all over the world during World War II, fleeing some type of oppression. People from Bulgaria, people from southern France, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And everybody coming in with some type of intrigue about them. So everybody that he talks to has some type of game that they're running.
Okay.
And he has to deal with it moment by moment. In fact, the opening scene in that movie, Casablanca, is something probably a lot of people didn't notice. When I say opening scene, I mean the opening scene where they first show the character Rick Blaine, played by Humphrey Bogart. When they first show him, he's doing what? He's playing chess. And he's playing chess by himself, meaning he's making all of the moves. When you're playing chess or checkers, you are not only making the moves that you're making, but you're also making the moves that your opponent would be making. So you're learning all of that in advance. Now, that's depicted in the movie. I don't think the average person would even pay attention to it. But this is a good way to get what you might call educated through entertainment. Mm-hmm. You can look at the movie Casablanca and study all of the characters. Senior Lugatti, a person who killed 2 German couriers, allegedly, and took letters of transit off of them that are very valuable because these letters of transit would allow a person to get out of Casablanca and go to other parts of the world. But somebody killed these 2 German couriers who were carrying the letters, and they wound up in the hands of a character named Senior Lugatti. But Senior Lugatti didn't want to hold the letters, so he brought them to Rick Blaine to hold for a few hours so that he wouldn't be caught with them. Now, here he is. He's going to give it to somebody else so that if someone were looking for the letters and they happened to be in that Rick Blaine's restaurant, they might just come after Rick Blaine and he would be caught with the letters, not Senior Lugatti. So the point that I'm making is the person who ran the restaurant had to deal with every type of character that you can name. Everybody who approached him had some type of problem that they wanted solved, and many times they were willing to make a problem for him in solving their problem. And that is the case of many of us as black people each and every day. Everybody we interact with, including other black people, they come to us, with one thing, but it's going to lead to something else, it's going to lead to something else, it's going to lead to something else, and all of it is ugly. But you have to contend with it. And at the same time, keep your major goal in mind. In the case of Rick Blaine, his major goal really was to defeat the Nazis. But he had very little leeway for doing that, and everything coming at him. But he took advantage of each and every opportunity to do the best that he could, even though he himself had tremendous flaws. For one thing, he was a drinker. He drank and drank and drank, and a chain smoker.
Mm-hmm.
All right? And he was aware of these frailties of himself. So that's something that black people can learn from. Edutainment. You can learn from your own weaknesses. You know that when you have weaknesses, you have them. And he also had a weakness for a lady. All right? And he made a decision at the end of the movie. We got a greater cause. He told the lady that. Said, we like each other, and you could be with me and all like that, but it wouldn't really work out.
Now, Mr. Fuller, are there certain things that we should be doing? We got a couple of minutes. Are there certain things that we should be doing in the area of entertainment, sports, and on a consistent basis? What are those couple of things?
Well, just use every situation you can to try to find out how you can educate some people, particularly the people who are in the media field, like on the stage or on the screen. Okay? And then the people in the sports field can take the money that they get from the sports, because most black people who are in sports now get a tremendous amount of money.
Right.
And like some of the people who have been in the sports field, they have branched out into other fields.
Right.
Which is exactly what the white supremacists do not want you to do. If you're a basketball player, they just want you to stick to basketball. But no, you say, oh, yes, I'll bounce this basketball, but when I get off of this court, I'm going to be doing other things.
Yeah, that's probably why we're seeing that 75 to 80% of all of those athletes 5 years after they've finished their careers are bankrupt. And so there is something to be thought in terms of that direction. But Mr. Fuller, stay right there. In the second segment of this, a Harvard professor wants to abolish the white race. This ought to be interesting. Stay right there. More to come on the compensatory concept, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
Hi, I'm Joan London, and if you're worried about your parent or a loved one living alone like I was, and you want reliable senior care information, then call A Place for Mom, the nation's largest senior living referral service. You'll get free information on assisted living, Alzheimer's care, nursing homes, even important financial information.
They had obviously researched every place, not just given me names.
Really? Yeah.
They found me a place for what she could afford, and it was magnificent.
We're now very confident that she's safe, and they just helped every step of the way, and I can't thank them enough.
So if you're struggling to find reliable senior living information, call A Place for Mom. This is a free service, and you can trust them to help you.
If you're struggling to find reliable senior living information for your mom or dad, then call or go online to get the free help you need during this turbulent time. Call now, 800-371-5898, 800-371-5898.
Richard Holt, research chemist, University of Rio Grande in southeastern Ohio. With your skin, you can see your condition. Richard's Remedy is a multi-purpose cream that works on a variety of skin conditions. I sell it in a 1-ounce container through the internet for $12.95 at richardsremedy.com.
All major credit cards accepted. Call 937-607-4259 or go to email info@talktainmentradio.com for a free sample of Richard's Remedy.
T-Mobile presents The Simple Choice.
With T-Mobile, I can walk out with the new Samsung Galaxy S4 for way less than at AT&T. We have a big family. T-Mobile.
Awesome. Now we'll all have the coolest phones in school. It almost makes up for the social stigma of living in a shoe. You live in a shoe.
Choose to spend less upfront at activation for your new Samsung Galaxy S4 at T-Mobile.
Every baby can have the freedom to move their way in Pampers Cruisers. They adapt at the waist, legs, and bottom with up to 12 hours of protection for our driest, best-fitting diaper. Pampers.
Years ago, identical twins were separated at birth. Chris Paul was destined for life of basketball. Cliff Paul was destined to become a State Farm agent. They shared one invaluable trait. They were both born to assist. Find an agent born to get you to a better state.
The United Independent Compensatory Code System concept by Neely Fuller is considered as one of the substantial and basic books for understanding and effectively countering racism. Neely Fuller will turn upside down everything you've heard and everything you think you know about racism and how it works. Call area code 202-484-5461. 202-484-5461.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
We've got the power.
Justice is better than racism.
This is the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com. Radio, the way it should be heard, the world's greatest radio. You can also catch Mr. Fuller, if you don't catch him right now live at 10 a.m., catch him tonight at 10 p.m., exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, where you'll hear a repeat performance of this show at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Or, if you don't get a chance to listen, you can always go TalkTainmentRadio.com, type in the word, hit the programs section, then go straight from programs into the compensatory concept. And you can download, listen to downplays, what they call all of that kind of stuff. And you can listen to them and be well noted and rewarded for the knowledge that you will gain. Whether you agree or disagree, one thing for sure is you will gain knowledge from it. So there's quite a bit to be talked about on TalkTainmentRadio.com. We get quite a few calls during the week concerning Mr. Fuller's show, and we try to send them straight to that producejustice.com website. And there are people who want instant replays of it. So it's just a whole, but what they call podcasts. So a lot of that goes on with Mr. Fuller's works and words. Mr. Fuller, there is a professor out of Harvard University. His name is Neil Igidzev. Sounds like he could be Neil Ignivitev. Sounds like he could be Russian. He is a professor at Harvard University who wants to abolish the white race. He says the purpose of his work is to keep bashing the dead white males and the live ones and the females too until the social construct known as the white race is destroyed, not deconstructed, but destroyed. In the new issue of Harvard Magazine, the professor says that abolishing the white race is so desirable that some may find it hard to believe that only committed white supremacists would be opposed to it. He goes on to write that every group within white America, even labor unionists, ethnic groups, college students, school teachers, taxpayers, and white women have advanced its particularly and narrowly defined interests at the expense of black people as a race. Then he drops the real bomb. He says the real purpose of his journal, Race Traitor, is to keep bashing dead white males until the social contract. Okay, wait a minute. Many levels of government academia give white people, very often Asians, disadvantage to try to offset historical racism. I'm trying to figure out where this is going. But affirmative action is a form of racism. This is what this article is saying. These policies intended to benefit minority students only feed to the same racist machine they are supposed to counteract. Well-intentioned affirmative action are inherently racist by giving benefits basically. But anyway, he says he wants to eliminate racism. Now, this article appears on, I believe it's the Mr. Conservative, Mr. Conservative website. And it would be the latest edition of Mr. Conservative. And it was written by a columnist named Christine Tate. So you're reading some of her views on this notion of affirmative action and everything. But this professor says that it's time to give it up. He's saying it's time to abolish it. And I guess he's saying that there are a lot of white people out there who want he says it's so desirable that some may find it hard to believe that only the committed white supremacists would be opposed to. Now, what that means, he's saying that a lot of white people want to give up the notion of a white race. Mr. Fuller, let me jump in here and get your thoughts on this. Do you feel that it is true that white people want to give up the concept of the white race? Mr. Fuller.
I'll believe it when I see it. Because many white people have said that they want to do away with racism, which is what race is. Race doesn't serve any purpose at all except to mistreat people based on color. That's what real racism is. People sometimes disguise the word, or they extend the word race or racism all over the place so that it takes in everything called nationality and all this type of thing. Race is about one thing: mistreating people based on color. It's not good for anything else. Nobody should ever want to be a member of a race, because race is racism. Now, you've got the word is used generically. I mean, horse race, buggy race, car race, all this type. I'm not talking about foot race. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about race within the context of people being classified by race. The only reason that anyone would want to join a race, and that's the only way you can be a member of a race unless you're forced to be forced to say that you're a member. The only reason for joining a race of people is to practice racism. And racism, in function, is mistreating people based on color. That's what it's designed for: dominating and mistreating people based on color. So no people should want to be a member of a race. And the way the world is now, there's only one race, even though the white supremacists will say that there are many, many races. But that's them talking, because they are deceivers, and they have deceived people into making people believe that they are members of a race when they are the only race, the race of white supremacists, the white race. That's the only race of people. Sometimes they'll even say that there's a human race, which doesn't make sense. What would a human be racing against? Racing for or racing against? You're in a race. Racing for what? Racing against what? You don't even have human beings, not to say anything about a race, because you can't have people who are humane in a system of white supremacy. So all of the people on the planet are inhumane. We're not even human beings, none of us, because the white supremacists won't allow us to be. You can't have racism and human beings in the same environment
but this guy,
at the same time.
This guy wants to eliminate it. He writes a journal. He writes something at Harvard called Race Traitor, and it's a journal of new abolitionism. This is what he said he believes. I'm going to read some of it for you, Mr. Fuller. It says, the white race is a historically constructed social formation. It consists of all those who partake of the privileges of the white skin in society. Its most wretched members share a status higher in certain respects than that of the most exalted persons excluded from it, in return for which they give their support to a system that degrades them. The key to solving the social problem of our age is to abolish the white race, which means no more, no less than abolishing the privileges of the white skin. Until that task is accomplished, even partial reform will prove elusive because white influence permeates every issue, domestic and foreign, in U.S. society. The existence of the white race depends on the willingness of those assigned to place their racial interests above class, gender, or any other interests they hold. Defection of enough of its members to make it unreliable as a predictor of behavior will lead to its collapse. Mr. Fuller, let me get your thoughts on that.
Well, if he's advocating the abolishing of the white race, so do I. So did anybody who believes in justice, because the white race exists for one purpose, and that is to dominate and mistreat people of color. That's what it's for. It's not for anything else. It doesn't have anything to do with anything else. That is the goal, and that goal was accomplished a long time ago. Now, that should be replaced. The white race should be replaced as a race. Not talking about replacing white people, just replacing their system. The white race set up a system called the system of white supremacy, and that's designed to dominate and mistreat people who have color, where if you are classified as white, you can just walk around on the planet and say, oh, I just see a person before me here, and that person has color in his or her skin. Therefore, that person is eligible to be mistreated by me. I can dominate that person and mistreat that person with impunity. I can do anything I want to with that person, and nobody should do anything about it. Nobody should even attempt to do anything about it, because that's the way it should be. Because I'm white, I am colorless, and that person has color. And me, the colorless person, is supposed to dominate that person that has color and mistreat that person in the process for my fun, for my glory, and for my material comfort. And that's what the white race is for. It's not for anything else. So anybody who talks about abolishing the white race is right on course. But of course, you want to also replace it with a better system than what they have set up. And that system, logically speaking and constructively speaking, would be the system of justice, which means guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. Now, but talking directly to what the gentleman who wrote that article said, I'll believe it when I see it, because many white people have come down the pike, down through the years, saying, oh, this thing about racism, it's a terrible thing. We got to get rid of it. But then they go and get under the blanket and go to sleep. And it's not gotten rid of. So I'm saying to all of the non-white people on the planet, in response to that article about this proposal, which is what it is, believe it when you see it. Believe it when you see it, and not 1 minute before, because white people can abolish the system of racism anytime they want to.
Well, why don't they do it?
Because they don't want to, apparently. That's the only obvious reason. They don't want to. They're the only ones who set it up. Nobody set it up but them. No creatures from, E.T. and his crew came from outer space and set up a system of white supremacy. I don't know of anybody, from some other planet who came and did it. They did it. They know how it's put together. They know how it works on a day-to-day basis. They can abolish this system and replace it with a system of justice in 15 minutes. It would take them just about 15 minutes to do it. Push a few buttons on the computer and it's gone. All of the white people will suddenly start acting differently from the way that they are acting, simply by choice. All they got to do is just act different. Just say, I'm not mistreating people based on color. I'm not making any distinction. of any kind. And everything that I do in my interactions with people is going to be constructive. That's all each and every white person needs to do, each and every day. And everything falls in place. All the white people that black people work around and whatnot, they don't have to walk up to black people and say, well, I'm going out of the business of racism. All they have to do is just start not mistreating people. That'll be obvious. You'll know when you're not being mistreated. Everybody will know that. Even a baby understands that. And we are babies. We non-white people on this planet under the system of white supremacy. We are in a baby-like condition. We're not men and women. We're not qualified to be. They have taken away our manhood and our womanhood. And the white supremacists, many of them, are working steady to even degenderize that. I mean, they're just trying to abolish our genders. I mean, you know, under the guise of gay liberation, they call it.
Right.
See what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so they're just refining the system of racism. But in direct answer to your question, could white people get rid of racism? They could do it in 15 minutes. I mean, they don't have to draw this out no time. All they have to do is just decide, as of this hour in this day, August, in the middle of August of the year 2013, no more racism as of this minute. In other words, we're not making any distinctions of people based on color.
So we are
strictly in the business of justice from now on.
So you're not buying this notion that white people want to get rid of the concept of white race. Is that what you're saying? You're not buying into it?
I don't see any evidence of it. I don't see any evidence of it at all. I see the evidence that they are refining it.
All right. Well, then let's put it like this. What evidence would you need to see?
Just practice justice. When you see people...
No, I understand that, but what evidence
all right,
would
practice
you need to
justice
see?
Meaning, okay, somebody's in court right now. We know about the courts. The court system, you know, lots of white people who are in the field of jurisprudence, they call it. The court system, the field of law, as listed in the textbook for victims of white supremacy. Many white people and black people are involved in that field. You would know when racism has suddenly disappeared. Every lawyer, every black lawyer in a case right now would know it. When you have a Trayvon Martin case and all like that, I mean, people wouldn't be talking about race. It would just be somebody got killed, and we're investigating to see who did it and see that justice is done. And we're not doing it on the basis of any color either. That's not going to even come up. That's how you would know it, when people don't even discuss color. I mean, you know, they see color, like, you know, the racists some time ago is saying, well, we got to have a society where we don't see color. Well, that's an insult. I mean, you don't say that you don't want to see color when you look at a tree. Why is it you wouldn't want to see color when you look at a person? Whatever created color, and it should be recognized. Nothing incorrect about color. What's incorrect about color? Mm-hmm. But the white supremacists have spread that doctrine that even black people don't like color in people. But color's all right when they put on some clothes. Purple, green, orange, chartreuse shoes with blinking lights that they'll kill each other about. But if you see color in a person and that color is black, all of a sudden everybody's got an attitude. Kill it. Stomp on it. Run it down the street. Lock it up. Now, all on the basis of color, something that was created by the creator of all of us? No. The white supremacists generated that type of thinking. And it's not only an insult and a tyranny against the people of the planet, it's an insult and tyranny against the creator of the planet.
Uh-huh.
and of the entire universe.
Okay. So I hear what you're saying, and we're going to stick with this a little bit longer because this is very significant. Race traitor, is it real? Is it another con game? Do they really want to abolish? Should white people really want to abolish the white race? We're going to get more on this coming up next on the Compensatory Concept, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
TalkTainmentRadio.com. Food for thought.
I guess it's time for us to have that talk with our children on how we should carry ourselves and act in public. If ever there is a feeling of uneasiness about a situation or feeling that something is not right, we should try to exit the area immediately, and if threatened, call 911. Back in the day, parents routinely had that talk, and I guess those days never really left us. I spent my younger years in Sanford, Florida. It was segregated then by law, and it still seems to be in some situations and with some people. I remember family members routinely having conversations on how to act and react in public. Sadly, those conversations need to continue.
That's another food for thought. To hear additional food for thought, stay tuned to TalkTainmentRadio.com. Radio, the way it should be heard.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!
In 50 feet, turn left. Why are you driving so slowly?
After a few drinks, I'm taking it slow.
Well, you're not fooling the cop behind you.
What?
Get ready to pay in 0.1 miles.
Getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
My name is Al Edmondson. I'm a business owner and community organizer. I want to encourage you to visit the King Lincoln District, our community. It's a great place to live, work, and worship. Catch a show at the Lincoln Theater. Enjoy smooth jazz at the King Arts Complex. Enjoy great food and visit our historical churches and newly remodeled homes. Live, work, and worship the King Lincoln District.
Welcome to today's lottery drawing. And today's winning numbers are not yours, not yours, and another number that's not yours. And the final number is not yours.
When it comes to having money, don't rely on luck. Brew your own coffee at home instead of buying that latte. Brown bag it to work instead of ordering it. Go to feedthepig.org for more free ideas on how to save. Feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
We're cracking down on Medicare fraud.
The healthcare law gives us powerful tools to fight it,
to investigate it,
prosecute it,
and stop criminals.
Our senior Medicare Patrol volunteers
are teaching seniors across the country
to stop, spot, and report fraud.
You can help.
Guard your Medicare card.
Don't give out your card number over the phone.
Call to report any suspected fraud.
We're cracking down on Medicare fraud.
Let's make Medicare stronger for all of us.
The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept by Neely Fuller is considered as one of the substantial and basic books for understanding and effectively countering racism. Neely Fuller will turn upside down everything you've heard and everything you think you know about racism and how it works. Call area code 202-484-5461. 202-484-5461.
Did you know that birthday parties help build confidence in kids?
Yeah. Did you know that giving kids less sugar before bedtime helps them sleep better?
Oh, totally. Did you know that friendly kids have more friends?
Everybody knows that.
Hey, guys, did you know that most people think they're using the right car seat for their kid, but they're not?
I didn't know that.
Parents who really know it all know for sure that their child is in the right car seat at the right age and size. Visit safercar.gov/the right seat to make sure your child is protected. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
We've got the power.
Justice is better than racism.
This is the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com. I'm Brother Kahari, sitting in every week with Mr. Fuller. And you can catch us live right now, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or you can listen up tonight. There'll be a replay at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I believe there might be another replay in between there. I'll have to get the actual time. I think it's at 3. But it's played several times throughout this day. And, of course, if you want to get a copy of the 2 most definitive works on the issue of racism, you go to www.producejustice.com, producejustice.com, and you will not be disappointed. With the incredible information and knowledge and insight that you will get from these 2 definitive works. Mr. Fuller, this notion of white people wanting to get rid of the concept of the white race, should that be the same for yellow, black, and brown, and red people also? Should all of them want to get rid of the notion of race in general and replace it with what? Now, I understand how you're talking about treating people, but if you eliminate the concept of race, then what words do you replace race with?
Oh, you just get rid of the concept of race. I mean, race could still apply to someone in a foot race or something like that. But as far as using the word race and associating it with mistreat people based on color, which is what it's really all about, it's not about anything else. Just get rid of that altogether.
Okay, so
that never should have been. That never should have been invented.
Right, but what term do you replace it with? I mean, if you want
to replace the word justice.
No. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about if you want to identify people. Let's say you have people that look like, we'll use a word like Chinese. You have people who look like Chinese, bunches of them. People look like Koreans, people who look like Swisslanders. So what word would you use as opposed to saying white race? What term would you use to identify these people?
White people, if they want to be identified as white people. No problem there. You see, color doesn't have anything to do with race unless you make it so, because race is about mistreatment. Color is just about color. You know, just like you got oak trees. I mean, you know, you got elm trees. You got begonia trees or whatnot. You got different things in the universe, and you have things called, or rather entities, beings called people. And people come in sizes and shapes. You have people who are different weights, and that weight will change maybe every other day or so or something like that, depending on whether or not the person is on some type of weight regimen and whatnot. I mean, you can't really say it's the same person. In fact, a person will meet another person on the street and say, you know what? You don't look like you used to. And they'll say, why? Looks like you put on some weight. Okay, well, what was the weight before? Well, about 160 pounds, and now you are up to 200 pounds. Now, that person is really not the same person, yet, as far as weight is concerned. But it's the same way with color. You know, color is just like weight or the shape of the ears or anything like that, except that color doesn't change in people, you know, unless they do something artificial and whatnot. And the person is still the person, but you just look at the person and say, well, it's a black person, you know, or a non-white person, whatever label you want to use. The person is still a person. But the person does have color if the person has color. And then a person that has less color, you know, you can just say that person has less color. This is true even among black people in the same families, you know, and even among individuals themselves. I've pointed this out down through the years. If you take an individual black person and have that black person take off his or her clothes so that the person is what you might call completely naked, you can look at that person, and if you don't believe it, you can try it when people are around swimming pools or something like that, and they just have on something, you know, very few clothes, like a one-piece swimsuit or something, or a two-piece in the case of a female. Look at the person's skin in different parts of that person, you will see different shades of color. I don't think the average person has ever paid too much attention to it, but I have, particularly on beaches and whatnot. And the person will be one shade in one part of the body. Sometimes the person's legs are darker than the upper part of their body. And it doesn't come from the sun. It's just that way. And sometimes around the back area of a person, it will be lighter. It will be a light brown, and the front part of the person, including the face, will be extremely dark. Now, why is that? And you can tell by the where the different shades change that it didn't have anything to do with the clothing that they wore when they're in the sun or something like that over a period of time. That's just their natural look. One person, who you might say is a black person, will be different shades of brown on different shades of the body. A person can check this out with somebody they know real close personally, like, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, etc., etc. Just look at the person. I mean, really look at the person and see what you're looking at, because there's a passage in the textbook that says, in racial matters, many look, but few see. See what? See what they're looking at. And that's one thing that each person can check out themselves for their own eyes. So, like I always say in codification, don't believe what people tell you, including Neely Fuller. Listen to what it is, but you check out things yourself.
Do your own thinking.
Yes, do your own thinking. Never give up your own thinking.
That's right. So, in essence, what you're telling me is that red people can still be called red people. Brown people can still be called brown people. But Mr. Fuller, doesn't that keep the whole system that we're now talking about abolishing going? That doesn't, I mean, if you're going to allow them to do that, then we're keeping the same structure in place. Are we not?
No, because all we're talking about is color. Color doesn't have to do anything with race unless you make it that. Racism could have been based on the shape of the ears, like Hitler tried to make it, okay, for example, or the shape of the forehead. He was going to include all of that. He said, hey, we're not just talking about the color of the person. You better check out that person's forehead. Because if the person, even back in the old days, some psychiatrists were talking about high brows and low brows. If your hairline came down real low on your forehead, you would consider what they call low brow, which means you were kind of dim-witted. In other words, you didn't have very much sense because your hair came way down on your forehead. All right? I mean, that would really put people who got bangs and whatnot in trouble. Say, I can't hire you. You're dim-witted. You don't have very much sense. Because the highbrow people, the people who highbrow, the people who have a forehead that goes way back like they're getting bald. Now, these are supposed to be the people who are really smart. At one time, somebody was speaking in that kind of language, highbrow and lowbrow. Lowbrow, if you had a real low brow, if your hair grew naturally right down.
I think the ancient Romans have said used something called physiognomy. I think that's what it was. Yeah, I think that's where you're going with that. Mm-hmm. But go ahead.
The shape of the nose, the shape of the ears. Yeah. I mean, and Hitler had a category of what he called within the white race. Watch this, called Aryan. Mm-hmm. But he never defined exactly what that meant. And people have been running around hitting each other over the head about it, too. What is an Aryan? Because Adolf Hitler actually included people who are very dark-skinned, meaning people that we now refer to as East Indians, the people from India, Pakistan, and around there in that area. He said that they were Aryans originally, that the original Aryans were those people. Gandhi's people. These were the Aryans. I mean, according to some of the writings, if I understand correctly, of Adolf Hitler. Now, maybe some of the people in the Nazi Party can clear that up. I don't see how they can. But that word is thrown around very loosely, in my opinion. Aryan. I don't know what people mean.
So what we do then is that we just simply do not make color. We do not create colorism. We do not create racism. We get rid of all of those isms, and we just simply acknowledge that people have different biologies, but we don't base anything on it.
Yes, just like you say, some people are taller than others. So what? So what else is new? And some people are dark, and some people are light, and so what? You don't make an issue over it of any kind. You want to know how people are going to treat people. That's the only criteria you use. This is why I say in the textbook for victims of white supremacy that there are no such thing as Americans or Asians or Africans on this planet right now. Not one. Why? Because in order to be an Asian, an African, or an American, you have to practice justice. If you don't practice justice, you cannot be an African, you cannot be an Asian, and you cannot be an American. Because these three words are synonymous with the word justice, if you're going to use logic. And so these are people who are yet to be produced. Everybody on the planet should be striving every day to be an American, to be an African, and to be an Asian, meaning a person that practices justice. Because if you don't practice justice, you don't even need a name or a title. In fact, you shouldn't even be breathing.
Wow. And this is an important piece, Mr. Fuller, because a lot of people have asked me that. And they've said, okay, if we get rid of X, then what takes its place? My statement has always been nothing. You don't need anything to take its place. What you want to do is get rid of a great evil, and then justice is the thing that you replace it with if you're looking for something to replace it. But in terms of skin color, you're saying just acknowledge them, but don't make a big deal out of them. Just move on forward, and then move that system out of the way that does make a big deal. It does crush people. It does destroy people. But this guy says that a lot of white people want to get rid of racism. Mr. Fuller, you said it's not that you disbelieve him, you just have doubts. And until you see evidence of it, you will continue to have doubts. Is that correct?
That's an absolute duty. That's an absolute duty. If you have a system of non-justice in place, you want to see the evidence that the non-justice is no longer in place. The system of white supremacy is a system of non-justice. Now, the only way you can see evidence that non-justice is in place and that justice has replaced non-justice is for justice to replace non-justice. Not 1 minute before. Not a promise. That's just like a prisoner being in prison, and the warden keeps coming down year after year saying, I promise you, you'll be out of here in a little while. Well, what do you mean by a little while? Well, any moment now. But when I wake up, I'm still in the cell, year after year. So the only evidence that the warden is telling the truth is when he actually comes and turns the key. And I walk down the street and say, hey, I'm really out of there. I'm out of there. Now, that's the only way that I know that the warden is telling the truth. Otherwise, the warden is just entertaining me and himself.
Wow. And you think that's what might be going on here?
Yes. I have to believe that because this system of racism has been going on for a long time. I mean, presidents have come and gone who have said that they have wrestled with it and then threw up both hands and didn't know what to do. Okay? So you got a system that's pretty well entrenched.
Very well.
So seeing is believing. In other words, do it.
Don't
the
forget.
White people out there within sound of my voice, you know how to do things. I mean, you know, many of you brag about being the smartest people that ever existed on the planet. So get smart and do that. And then take credit for having done something that nobody's ever done. Produce justice.
Thank you, Mr. Fuller.
Thank you.